his velvet collar, and how white his hands were, and every nail like an acorn, only pink like shellfish, or at least like shells, and the way he bowed and dropped his eyes from his pure respect for me, and then that he would not even speak on account of his emotion, but pressed my hand in silence. Oh, Lizzie, you have read me beautiful things about Sir Gallyhead and the rest, but nothing to equal Sir Counsellor. You had better marry him, madam, said I, coming in very sternly, though I knew I ought not to say it. He can repay your adoration. He has stolen 100,000 pounds. John, cried my mother, you are mad. And yet she turned as pale as death, for women are so quick at turning, and she inkled what it was. Of course I am, mother, mad about the marvels of Sir Galahad. He has gone off with my Lorna's necklace. 50 farms like ours can never make it good to Lorna. Hereupon ensued grim silence. Mother looked at Lizzie's face, for she could not look at me, and Lizzie looked at me to know, and as for me, I could have stamped almost on the heart of any one. It was not the value of the necklace, I am not so low a hound as that, nor was it even the damned folly shown by every one of us. It was the thought of Lorna's sorrow for her ancient plaything, and even more my fury at the breach of hospitality. But Lorna came up to me softly, as a woman should always come, and she laid one hand upon my shoulder, and she only looked at me. She even seemed to fear to look, and dropped her eyes, and sighed at me. Without a word, I knew by that how I must have looked like Satan, and the evil spirit left my heart, when she had made me think of it. Darling John, did you want me to think that you cared for my money more than for me? I led her away from the rest of them, being desirous of explaining things, when I saw the depth of her nature opened like an everlasting well to me. But she would not let me say a word, or do anything by ourselves, as it were. She said, your duty is to your mother. This blow is on her, and not on me. I saw that she was right, though how she knew it is beyond me, and I asked her just to go in front and bring my mother round a little, for I must let my passion pass. It may drop its weapons quickly, but it cannot come and go before a man has time to think. Then Lorna went up to my mother, who was still in the chair of elegance, and she took her by both hands, and said, dearest mother, I shall fret so, if I see you fretting. And to fret will kill me, mother. They have always told me so. Poor mother bent on Lorna's shoulder, without thought of attitude, and lay her cheek on Lorna's breast, and sobbed, till Lizzie was jealous, and came with 2 pocket handkerchiefs. As for me, my heart was lighter, if they would only dry their eyes, and come round by dinner time, than it had been since the day on which Tom Faggus discovered the value of that blessed and cursed necklace. None could say that I wanted Lorna for her money now, and perhaps the Doones would let me have her, now that her property was gone. But who shall tell of Annie's grief? The poor little thing would have staked her life upon finding the trinket in all its beauty lying under the pannikin. She proudly challenged me to lift it, which I had done long ere that, of course, if only I would take the risk of the spell for my incredulity. I told her not to talk of spells until she could spell a word backwards, and then to look into the pan where the charmed cream should be. She would not acknowledge that the cream was the same as all the rest was, and indeed it was not quite the same, for the points of poor Lorna's diamonds had made a few star rays across the rich firm crust of yellow. But when we raised the pannikin, and there was nothing under it, poor Annie fell against the wall, which had been whitened lately, and her face put all the white to scorn. My love, who was as fond of her as if she had known her for 50 years, hereupon ran up and caught her, and abused all diamonds. I will dwell no more upon Annie's grief, because we felt it all so much, But I could not help telling her, if she wanted a witch, to seek good Mother Meldrum, a legitimate performer. That same night, Master Jeremy Stickles, of whose absence the Counsellor must have known, came back with all equipment ready for the grand attack. Now the Doones knew, quite as well as we did, that this attack was threatening, and that but for the wonderful weather it would have been made long ago. Therefore we, or at least our people, for I was doubtful about going, were sure to meet with a good resistance and due preparation. It was very strange to hear and see, and quite impossible to account for, that now some hundreds of country people, who feared to whisper so much as a word against the Doones a year ago, and would sooner have thought of attacking a church in service time than Glen Doone, now sharpened their old cutlasses, and laid pitchforks on the grindstone, and bragged at every village cross, as if each would kill 10 Doones himself, neither care to wipe his hands afterwards. And this fierce bravery and tall contempt had been growing ever since the news of the attack upon our premises had taken good people by surprise, at least as concerned the issue. Jeremy Stickles laughed heartily about Annie's new manner of charming the cream, but he looked very grave at the loss of the jewels, so soon as he knew their value. "My son," he exclaimed, "this is very heavy. It will go ill with all of you to make good this loss, as I fear that you will have to do." "What!" cried I, with my blood running cold, "we make good the loss, Master Stickles? Every farthing we have in the world, and the labour of our lives to boot, will never make good the 10th of it." "It would cut me to the heart," he answered, laying his hand on mine, "to hear of such a deadly blow to you and your good mother. And this farm, how long, John, has it been in your family?" "For at least 600 years," I said, with a foolish pride that was only too like to end in groans; "and some people say by a royal grant in the time of the great King Alfred. At any rate, a Ridd was with him throughout all his hiding time. We have always held by the King and the Crown. Surely none will turn us out, unless we are guilty of treason." "My son," replied Jeremy very gently, so that I could love him for it, "not a word to your good mother of this unlucky matter. Keep it to yourself, my boy, and try to think but little of it. After all, I may be wrong. At any rate, least said, best mended." "But Jeremy, dear Jeremy, how can I bear to leave it so? Do you suppose that I can sleep and eat my food, and go about and look at other people, as if nothing at all had happened, and all the time have it on my mind that not an acre of all the land, nor even our old sheepdog, belongs to us, of right at all? It is more than I can do, Jeremy. Let me talk, and know the worst of it." "Very well," replied Master Stickles, seeing that both the doors were closed. "I thought that nothing could move you, John, or I never would have told you. Likely enough I'm quite wrong, and God send that I be so. But what I guessed at some time back seems more than a guess, now that you've told me about these wondrous jewels. Now will you keep as close as death every word I tell you?" "By the honour of a man, I will, until you yourself release me." "That is quite enough, John. From you I want no oath, which according to my experience tempts a man to lie the more, by making it more important. I know you now too well to swear you, though I have the power. Now, my lad, what I have to say will scare your mind in one way, and ease it in another. I think that you have been hard pressed, I can read you like a book, John, by something which that old villain said before he stole the necklace. You've tried not to dwell upon it, you have even tried to make light of it for the sake of the women, but on the whole it has grieved you more than even this dastard robbery." "It would have done so, Jeremy Stickles, if I could once have believed it. And even without much belief, it is so against our manners that it makes me miserable. Only think of loving Lorna, only think of kissing her,
and then remembering that